Hello, my friend. Welcome to the next episode in the Red Delta Project podcast and live feed Q&A, where we take a fundamental approach to diet and exercise to give you more power, control, and freedom over your healthy lifestyle. I'm Matt Schifferly, as always. And today's episode, we're looking at the addiction to struggle fitness, or sometimes you refer to this as like struggle porn. You get on the internet and it's always about how hard you can work and how, sleep is for the weak and all these sorts of ideas. Lots of times it's in more the hustle culture that people refer to, where they're talking about how hard can you hustle, how much can you be working at work or your side hustles and stuff. But this attitude certainly spills over into fitness as well. And today's episode was inspired by I guess you could call it a conversation, but it was a little bit more of almost a bit of a debate I had with a friend of mine. It was a client at one of the gyms that I work at, and he had this pretty rough workout. And he was like, "Oh, geez, I'm just so tired and so run down and no energy. And that was such a hard class and everything." And so being a coach, it was like, okay, time to put on the coach gloves and the hat and everything. Okay, let's see, why was that so hard? Yes, of course, those workouts are a challenge, but it doesn't need to be a struggle. And so through various questions and getting kind of deeper into it, I realized that he was using dietary methods that were not in alignment with supporting that type of workout, largely just long fasting, very restrictive dieting, and so forth. So making the case of, well, when you're working out in the morning, you seem to be fine, but with later in the day workouts like this, you're running on fumes, you don't have much in the tank to go on, then you try and do this hard workout, boom, and it drives you down, you're tired, you're exhausted, you have trouble focusing, and so on. So maybe next time, have a little snack beforehand, get a little something in your system, just so that you've got something to pull you through the workout. And he kept pushing me back. And this is kind of a habit or a pattern that I've noticed with this individual, where he's always struggling. He's struggling to stay on his diet. He's struggling to stay on his workouts. He's struggling to lose the weight. He's struggle. And any type of advice I give him, he's always pushing back. And you might think to yourself, well, intellectually, why are we addicted to this? Who in the world wants this to be as hard as possible? And the answer to that is a lot of people. And if you try to pave the way and say, here's how we can make it easier, they'll actually push back. I know, because I used to be that guy. I used to be that individual where if that magic pill came out and says, you can be Captain America with this magic pill or secret formula, I would tell you, do you have anything that would do the opposite? So it's going to be even harder for me to get the results that I want with twice the effort. And that's the reality of this hustle culture, hustle porn that we have in our fitness culture, is it's being fed to us and we believe it. It's something that's impacting ourselves on a deep emotional level, and it's becoming an addiction. And it's an addiction that basically means you're going to spend a lot more time and a lot more energy and a lot more effort. You're going to be compromising the health of your body, the health of your mind, even potentially your emotional health, because that's certainly what it did for me. People would always be like, why is Matt always so depressed? Why does he always feel like he's not fun to be around? Because of this type of idea. I thought, as long as I make myself struggle, then that's going to get me where I want to go. But we have to break out of this, because it's always going to hold you back. It's always going to prevent you from getting what you want, no matter how much you work and no matter how much effort you put into it. It's kind of like trying to ride a bicycle with the brakes on while dragging a manhole cover into a headwind with square wheels, and then you wonder why you can never get to work on time. We want to reverse this. We want to break out of it. So let's examine 4 of some of the biggest reasons why we can be addicted to this sort of struggle porn mindset within our fitness culture. So the first one is ego. Ego is a big one. Lots of us get stuck into this idea that I'm the hardest worker. My self-worth and self-perception is based on how hard I'm working, how much struggle I can have. And this is the type of attitude where people will say, I'm the hardest worker in the room, and they always got to one-up people with how much they're struggling. In the office, it'd be like, oh man, I had to stay late to finish that project. They're like, you had to stay late last night? I've worked 12-hour days for the past 6 months, kind of thing. It's like they take this, not so much pleasure, but they're building up their ego from it. because they're not good at what they do. They aren't very proficient at things. They're not getting a lot done. So they're latching their ego onto the fact that, well, no one can outwork me. No one is sleeping less and is more miserable and is more beating themselves up than me. Therefore, I'm better than all of you wimps and all of you people who are taking it easy. 8 hours of sleep, you're a pansy. Oh, you took a vacation and decided to unplug your smartphone, or you decided to take it easier in today's workout because your legs are sore. You're a wimp, kind of thing. Nobody believes this sort of thing. It's only in our minds. I used to do this all the time, where I used to try to build myself up by looking down my nose at other people who were not working as hard or not as struggling as much. And it was pure ego on my part. It had no validity to it whatsoever. I was completely fooling myself because I'm like, I'm stronger, I'm tougher, I'm more macho because I'm more miserable than everybody else here. And no one cares. No one cares how hard you're working. No one gives a damn if you're doing overtime and are sleep deprived and your joints hurt and you're always sore and you're fighting off cravings. No one cares. Actually, let me back that up a little bit. Some people do care, but they care in the other way. They hate that you're doing that to yourself. They hate that you're always bitching about how you're sore all the time. They hate about how you're complaining on social media about how much of a struggle it is to lose weight and stuff. Nobody cares, and the people who do care about your struggle would rather you not be struggling, particularly those who are closest to you, who care the most, of course, because that was what happened with me. Was I was struggling so much, and oh, I'm always so tired, and oh, woe is me kind of thing. And friends and my family and girlfriends at the time would be like, stop doing this. I'm sick of hearing about it. And I even lost friends and relationships because of that sort of thing. Like, you're doing this to yourself. I'm not interested in this. See you later kind of thing. So we got to address that. No, it's not making you tougher. That self-grandiose perception of yourself from this struggle thing, that's only in your head and in the perception of everyone else, because that's what we think ego is based on, is how other people see us. It's actually hurting ourselves and going in the wrong direction. Okay. The second one is insecurity. Lots of times we latch onto struggle porn kind of ideas because we feel we're unworthy of a given result. Now, back to the conversation with this friend of mine, whenever I would say, okay, we don't need to make it this hard. You don't need to go to this extreme. You can take it a little easier on yourself, sort of ideas. Inevitably, it always comes back where I would be saying, well, it doesn't need, this isn't, and sometimes I would use myself an example of, I used to do it that way, but now I do it this way. It's much easier, much healthier for it. It's certainly possible. He would push back against me and always at the same time put me on a pedestal going like, well, you're like a professional athlete. You are like Captain America. You are this awesome, incredible training guy. Of course, you can have cake on Friday nights and not gain 20 pounds from that kind of thing. He would bolster me up, which is his way, or a roundabout way of saying, well, I need to do it this way because I'm not good enough. I don't deserve to get good results. I don't deserve that sort of thing. So therefore, if I can make myself suffer enough, I will become worthy of those outcomes. Again, this is exactly what I used to think. I used to have that attitude and belief system for years back in the day, because I've always struggled with some degree of self-worthiness issues, low self-esteem for most of my life. And I always thought if I could just work hard enough, I'll somehow become worthy. But the problem with this is you're never going to get there. There's no line. You're not going to have a fairy godmother come down and knight you with their magic wand or their magic barbell, right, on the shoulders and say, you are now worthy. You are now accepting of the results. And you're like, great, now I can build myself up. Never happens. How you feel about yourself, if it's low, will always stay low. You could have 5 black belts, write the best-selling novel, cure cancer, end world hunger, and people are like, we're going to give you a Nobel Prize, and you'd still be like, I don't deserve it, because it's something you give yourself. It's something you have to realize for yourself. You're worthy, you're worthy, you're already worthy. And I know my saying it doesn't do you any good, because you don't need permission from me, you need permission from yourself. But recognizing it is a good place to start. That we often get into this struggle porn culture within our fitness culture because we think, well, I'm not worthy. I need to struggle more to be worthy. But it's worth reiterating that fitness is not for the rich, beautiful, special people. It is simply an act of utilizing the natural processes of Mother Nature that are always going for every single person. You could be anybody, and if you cut yourself, it's going to heal. If you start working your muscles, they're gonna get bigger and stronger. You don't need to be special or earn the right to do it. You earn the right just by doing the habit. I start doing push-ups. Am I worthy? Of course. You just started doing push-ups. That's how low the bar is. So it's not about worthiness, it's perception of worthiness, and it should be higher than it really is. You don't need to be Captain America in order to be in better shape and get what you want. Another one too, and this is again what I struggle with, is just flat out incompetence. When we are starting out, that's when we're most vulnerable to a lot of wrong paths and dogmatic ideology and stuff like that. And oftentimes when we're starting in a new job or fitness or something, we're like, I don't really know quite what I'm supposed to be doing, so I'm just going to work myself to death, and that's my game plan. Surely, if you just work really hard, long enough, success will come. Well, I'm here to tell you, there's no guarantee of that. You can work yourself to death for decades and get nowhere. It happens all the time because hard work and effort is nothing more than an investment. And like any financial investment that you make, if you could invest in, I got this great stock, I put my life savings into it, I'm eating nothing but ramen and put all of it in this. What did you invest in? A company called Enron. I'm sure it'll pay off because I invested so much. No, any investment is no guarantee whatsoever. And so we want to make sure that we improve our competency very quickly, as quickly as possible, learning how to do things. You're always going to work hard in fitness. There's always going to be some challenge, but you want to make sure that's paying off as much as possible. You don't want to just be like, well, blood, sweat, and tears, I'm working my tail off, I'm sure it's going to pan out in the end. Don't do that. Please don't do that. Listen to me. I spent far too long putting forth time, energy, blood, sweat, and tears that were a complete waste of time. In fact, looking back on my life, I would say about 80% of everything I did in the name of fitness was a complete waste. No, I take that back. It wasn't a complete waste. It was detrimental. I would have been better off not even doing it in the first place. So we want to make sure that we go from, I'm going to work my way to success, to I'm going to improve how well I can work out, how well I can eat, how well I can do these exercises. Because when you get really good at them, you get really good results, even at a fraction of the work and effort. That's the ultimate goal. We don't want to work our way to success. You want to be proficient on your way to success, because the better you are, the less you have to do. And lastly, the thing that keeps us locked into struggle porn mindset is the desire for full control. Full control. I want full control of my body. I want to never get sick. I want to always have abs. I want to be super lean, and I want to be super strong and kick-ass performance to win the championship every single time. This is a complete myth. No one has full control. No one ever has. No one ever will, because the principles that establish why we get in shape are established by Mother Nature. We are not in control of them. I can't control the principles that are in control of fitness any more than I can control the weather or the rotation of the planet. Mother Nature is the one who's in charge. We can influence things, but even at that point, you don't have control over all of the influences. Many of them we don't even know about yet. And the ones we do know about, only some of them you can control. Like I can't control my age. I can't control my height. I can't control my muscle insertion points. There's a million things I can't control that influence my ability to be stronger and leaner and do 100 things. We have a very small sphere of influence that we can potentially control. And knowing that is a very good thing, because that means, okay, if this is all I can control, I'm going to do whatever I can. I'm not going to stay up late, eat terrible junk food, skip workouts and think, well, I'm sure if I just work hard enough, I can make up for it later on, kind of thing. No, you can't. You have a very small sphere of influence that you can do anything about. You better maximize and take whatever you can with that, because there's a lot of things about your fitness you have no control over. So you should control, or at least have some influence over the very small range of things that you can control. And so that breaks us out of this, well, I'm sure if I just work myself to death, or if I work hard enough, I'll have the control I desire. you'll never have it. It's impossible to have it. You can only have the control you have now and a little bit more. And again, a lot of that comes from breaking free of the ego, making sure that you become more competent, so you're getting better productivity and better results with the work that you're doing. And of course, not letting insecurities hold you back and prevent you and create that self-sabotage. So there you go. 4 things that keep us addicted to struggle porn and struggle culture within our fitness culture. We want this stuff to be easy as possible, because the easier you make it to be productive, the better your results will be, and the easier it will be to maintain the results you're getting as well. We want easy. Easy is a very good thing. And actually, closing up, a lot of times when I would talk to people like my friend about how, things are better for me, they'll be like, well, it's easy for you, Matt. Well, it's easy for you. And I'm like, exactly. It's easy for me, or at least way easier than it used to be. That's the good thing. Easy is not a bad thing. You don't get extra points by suffering more. You get extra points by winning the damn game. When you want to win games, you find ways to score points as easily and efficiently as possible. All right, let's get right on here with some questions. Thank you, everybody, for coming on here. And as always, if you put a "Hey, Matt" into the comment section here that I'm reading, I know that's addressed to me, and you're not conversing between the two, between each other. Excuse me. Ray, hey, Matt, scheduled finally, I'm going to catch live episodes. It's 11:30 p.m. here in Ukraine. Well, thank you very much for coming on. It's very much the way that we want to thank you for coming on, even though it is kind of late. And Ray, you also mentioned here very much, no pain, no gain is the American way. Yeah, tell me about it. A friend of mine one time observed this, and sometimes I wonder about this. One of my hobbies in fitness is going into the history of fitness, the history of our diet culture, the history of working out and stuff, because it's amazing how many things that we do these days that are based off of just, well, craziness, pseudoscience and stuff. And he was kind of going on the idea of like, America was all about puritanical ideas and Quakers and Prudes and a lot of ideas that were about suppressing the appetites and the desires of the human body. Case in point, like back in the day, a lot of dietary stuff wasn't about being lean or anything. It was about trying to suppress sexual urges in young men. Think of that next time you see cornflakes in the grocery aisle, or graham crackers. Mr. Graham. It wasn't like the graham crackers we have now, of course, but the whole idea back then was bland, boring, dull foods will suppress young men's urges for fornication and masturbation, which I kind of see where it's going with that sort of thing. Like, okay, if you're indulging in your sense of taste and other sensual things, then you're just going to let yourself run roughshod over the women in the village or something like that. But there's so many things about our American culture that are just nose to the grindstone, struggle. There was a thing on social media. I had to laugh the other day. You've probably seen it. Everybody's seen everything on social media. And it was like, over in Europe, it's like, here's this message, and it says, I am out camping with my family for the summer. I'll be back in touch. If you need to reach me at the office, you can reach me in September, kind of thing. And over in Europe, and it's like, here in America, I'm out of the office for 2 hours having kidney surgery, but you can still reach me by cell phone. We've got this struggle mentality in our American culture. It's not healthy. It's not good for us. It's in our fitness culture as well. Manny coming on with a good question here. How much does it matter to work out at the end of intermittent fasting? It doesn't really too much. The most important thing with your workouts is that you're timing your workouts in such a way that you can put a lot of energy into them. So some people will find that's at the beginning of a fast, mid-fast, end of a fast, but you want to hit it when you can really get a lot out of your workout. So like if I said, all right, you're going to do a pull-up workout, what circumstances during your fasting is going to give you the best chances of having that pull-up? So getting more repetitions, doing better reps, having full control. At the end of your fast, if you're like, all right, let's get this damn thing over with, all right, and just kind of do some sloppy reps, like, good, done, all right, the workout is finished. That's not going to be the most productive workout. But if you recognize that at the beginning of it or in the mid-fast, like, I get this jolt of energy because my adrenaline level's up because you're fasting, good, use it then. use it then. I'm going to just crush this workout. Bang, 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 doing pull-ups like a Marine. Yeah, that was awesome. That was a great pull-up workout. I set 2 PRs. It was good. That's what you should be doing. Don't worry too much about the timing based on like the feeding and stuff. Base it around your energy. That's a good thing to do. Like, what time of day should you work out? When should you work out during the weekend? When should you work out during the day? Let your energy decide that. Work out when you can have your best workout is the bottom line. There. Excuse me. Going through the phone here. Jacob. Hey, Matt, what's the best lunge variation to focus on to build strength? Very good question. Now, this may seem a little obvious, like, well, any sort of lunge. But here's the thing, especially with leg training and calisthenics too. When we want to really push our legs for strength, we want to do whatever variation allows it to be as easy as possible to work as hard as possible. Now, this is a preview to a podcast coming up that I'm doing with Phil of Mindful Mover, where we talked about this. He sent in an email last week, and I was like, dude, we got to get on the show to talk about this. Some exercises are just going to be harder to do at a maximum capacity. So, for example, in your lunges, let's say when you do walking lunges forwards, you get really exhausted, you get really out of breath, and your balance goes to hell pretty quick. But if you were to do, for example, more like a stationary lunge or a split squat, where you're not even stepping, just going up and down, for example, and you can really just work that muscle pretty hard into that red zone and make the muscle contract harder because you have less coordination, that's the variation to go after. So what is going to be easier for you to make the muscle work harder is what you want to do. And everybody's going to be a little bit different for the variations, but observe that. Like, what type of lunge is the easiest for you from a technical standpoint? And that's going to allow you to push your muscles to a higher level. Hey, Crack Rock, how's it going? Good to see you. Thanks for coming on. Hey, Matt, just came down Rabbit Mountain. I'm visiting friends here in Longmont. Oh, hey, dude, bro, all the ladies here are good looking. Hell yeah, man. Colorado is the place to be. The only place I've seen where it was like my head was on a constant swivel. I'm like, oh my God, the women here are gorgeous. Of course, I was like 15 at the time. So at that point, you're just saturated in hormones. Everybody looks gorgeous. But Italy was amazing. It was like, everybody here looks like a model. It's crazy. But yeah, the women here are very much, everybody's fit. Everybody's healthy out here in Colorado. It goes with the territory. Ray coming on again. Hey, Matt, micro workout related question. Awesome. Lay it on me. Any reason not to split a larger workout into small sessions throughout the day? Push-ups before breakfast, pull-ups later in the day, etc. Good question, because that's exactly what I do most of the time. I always break stuff up throughout the day. I just find it's easier on the body and the mind. I don't drive myself into the ground with too much fatigue and exhaustion. It helps break up the day, little movement snacks kind of thing. But one thing that I would say you're probably going to look out for, though, is if you have trouble getting things in later in the day. My schedule and everything is pretty easy. So if I do a mini workout in the morning and then in the afternoon, okay, I know I'm going to get to it then, and I do. But if you find that the day gets away from you, or your energy level just tanks and you find yourself consistently at the end of the day like, oh, that's right, I got to do my pull-up workout. Okay, energy's low, rushed, feeling stressed, don't really want to do this. If that's consistently happening, it's best to kind of get it all at once, because I know a lot of people, they like to work out in the morning for that thing. They're like, I do it all in the morning, get it all done, I got good energy, and then it's done. I don't have to think about it for the rest of the day. So monitor your own thoughts and feelings about your workouts. Which one's best? Once again, it all comes down to what allows you to have the best energy invested in the workout. If that means breaking it up, great. If that means you have to do it all at once in one time of the day, do that. That's what you want to use as your guide. Tomek coming on. Hey, Matt, how to train if you're a normal random person without taking supplements, steroids, protein shakes, also sleep once better, once worse, and have a job, stressful life. In other words, a normal person, no normal individual. And the answer for this is however you can. We're all different. Everybody is different. We all have different circumstances. As I always say, for the analogy, is drive according to your conditions, right? You don't get on the road and say, well, speed limit says 65, I'm going to do 75. And your friend's like, dude, we got an ice storm last night. Are you crazy? Not going to lie, that actually happened to me and a friend of mine years ago, where we had this terrible accident happen right in front of us because someone was driving on the interstate. It was totally icy and stuff, and they were driving like it was dry. It was not pretty. Thankfully, everybody was fine. But whenever I'm training people, I'm always like, what are your circumstances? And then we make choices based on that. I never give blanket information. And this especially goes for beginners. A lot of people will say, well, how should I do push-ups if I'm a beginner? How should I start calisthenics if I'm a beginner? There's no such thing as a universal beginner. I've known beginners who can do pistol squats. I've known beginners who have trouble getting up out of a chair. It's all across the board. So that's why you always want to be basing your decisions off of your current circumstances. What is your energy like? What are you able to do? If you can bang out one-arm push-ups, do that. If you struggle to do push-ups and you're saying, I got to do push-ups in order to do them well against a countertop, you do that. You always train according to your conditions. All of that other stuff, like what's your sleep like? What are you doing for your diet? Are you on steroids? All that's doing is changing your conditions. So some people who are like, oh, look they're practically Captain America. They've got different conditions than you. Now, if you can change your conditions by having better sleep and improving your diet and stuff, that's awesome. The better your conditions, the better you can train. But if you find yourself saying, I've got a normal life, I've got a 13-hour workday, I have little stress, my wife just gave birth to quintuplets, whatever it is, you use whatever your circumstances are and do the best you can with that. And if your best friend is like, dude, I'm on my 5th cycle of steroids, I get 12 hours of sleep every night, and I've got a home gym that's $30,000, great for them, but you're not that. Don't think or don't try to go and do their workout and their diet and everything, because it's different circumstances. You got to train according to the circumstances that you have. Very good. Jenna Pell. Hey, Matt, is it meaningless to target strength, hypertrophy, and endurance in the same workout? In terms of varying sets and reps, do I necessarily have to periodize? This is very good. This was actually a question that I answered to a degree on my latest YouTube video, because I've been doing my Do You Have To series. And I got so many of those that I just put a ton of them in one video, and it's time-stamped and stuff, so you can go into it. Check it out on Red Delta Project YouTube channel. And that's kind of one of these questions is along these areas. So one, is it meaningless? No, absolutely not. Anytime you're creating a difference in what you're doing as far as those rep ranges, you're creating that different stimulus. So you could say, I'm going to train for strength today, and tomorrow I'm going to train for endurance. All your body knows is, oh, you need to be able to do this thing. It doesn't really care if it's in the same workout, in the same week, the same month, and so on. Some people, though, periodize because they like having the emphasis that they're focusing on one thing at a time. This month, I'm going to keep my weights heavy, resistance heavy, reps low, focus on strength. And then the next month, they can switch gears. Some people just prefer that. Grind style calisthenics approach uses more of a combined approach in a single workout. So you have your strength phase and then your hypertrophy phase, which is kind of endurance slash endurance hypertrophy, kind of the same thing right afterwards. So you have multiple stimuli in the same workout. That's what grind style is all about, because those 4 levels that we work in grind style, you need all 4 of those qualities. You need tension control, you need stability, you need strength, and you need the endurance and so on if you want to build muscle to some degree. So you have to have all 4 of those developed at some point in your training career. Now, I don't care how you go about it. You can go in a periodization plan that's big blocks monthly or every 6 weeks or so. You can do it all in one workout, but you do at least want to have those things. If you focus on one, you're going to be missing out. And periodization is just a good way to ensure you're doing that, because it's saying, train emphasizing this area, good. Now train emphasizing in this area, because if you don't have a plan of when you're emphasizing things, chances are you're not going to emphasize much of anything, and you just kind of blah and miss various areas. So like I said in the video, it's not something you absolutely have to have. You can certainly be successful without it, but it is something you definitely want. Here's a good one. I am preparing for arm wrestling, but apart from calisthenics, I have no other resources. How can I strengthen my tendons with just my body weight? Well, tendons are beautiful. They are attached to muscles. Whatever strengthens the muscle will strengthen your tendon. So they're always connected together. You don't need to do anything special for one versus the other. If you're pulling on your muscle, you're pulling on your tendon. And tendons physiologically are always just stronger and tougher than muscle anyway. Your muscles are the weak link in the system. Tendons are like thick, fibrous material. Think of like a hockey puck, and your muscles are like a stretchy rubber band. All right, this is softer, more pliable, stretchier, that sort of thing. So when it comes to the tendon stuff, you want to just make sure that you have tension going through all of your muscles to begin with, because a lot of times when people are like, oh, my tendons hurt, it's a weakness. It has nothing to do with the tendons, actually. It's because muscles along the chain aren't engaging. So when you're doing, for example, like pull-ups, you want to make sure your grip is working your forearms and your biceps and your shoulders and your lats and your traps and your rhomboids, your entire back, your entire pull chain is engaged. Because if you don't have everything working, you're going to eventually get it in the tendons, usually in the wrist or the elbow. So that's what I would look for, is when you're doing your training, make sure you've got everything working in a very homogeneous way, because that again carries over into your arm wrestling. Because the more muscle you can use in arm wrestling, the stronger you're going to be. You don't want to feel like, oh, it's all in my chest or all in my bicep. You want to use everything. You want to be using your abs. You want to be using your back. You want to be using, your flexors and your arm. The more muscle you can use in that, the stronger you're going to be, and the easier it's going to be on the joints as well. All right, next one coming on, another focus question. Hey, Matt, I can't decide what should I focus on, boxing or lifting. Any tips? Well, this just comes right down to a preference there, man. What do you want to focus on? What's going to give you the best result? Now, you don't have to necessarily go exclusive, of course. You can be a boxer who also does some lifting. You could be a lifter who does a little boxing as a form of conditioning. And you can kind of go 50-50, but the more important it is for you to emphasize one, the more you should do that. Now, you can potentially go with, again, a periodized plan where you spend, for example, 4 months. You're like, I'm just going to lift like crazy. Like, that's my job. That's my main thing. And I'm going to do some bag work, some shadow boxing, maybe a sparring thing once a week, just to keep up the skills for conditioning. Okay, great. And after that, then you change gears and you say, okay, now I'm full on boxing. I'm going to the gym and sparring 4 days a week, and I'm working on technique another day. But the lifting thing is something I do just a couple weeks, times during the week, just to kind of get things in the groove and working. So you can change gears. It doesn't have to be like you're committed to this for the rest of your life kind of thing. But when you are changes, like when you are shifting on one thing, don't expect to make a lot of progress in the other. And probably with sport, with boxing, I don't know too much about boxing, unfortunately, but I'm assuming you would have like seasons or preparing for a fight kind of thing. Like, okay, I've got this fight in August, so I've got these steps of preparation, of conditioning, and so on, so I can be focused on the lifting until maybe like the 4th of July. And then once the July 1st comes around, now I need to go back into full-on boxing mode. Alan Gordon, hey. Hey, Matt, I did a bicep tricep only workout. Do I need a full body warm up, or can I get away with just warm up sets for the biceps and triceps when I get, these are such good questions. Fantastic. And again, this one kind of goes to another one of the questions that I answered in that video of do you have to, which was basically, do you have to when you warm up? So here's what I learned making that video, which is the best way I can convey this. The degree we need to warm up depends on two things. Okay? You have the condition you need to be in order to really get high performance out of what you're about to do. So maybe you're going to scale Kilimanjaro or El Capitan or something, rock climbing, or a bike race, or a heavy deadlift, or good bicep tricep workout, whatever. You have the condition you need your body to be in. And then you've got the condition you're starting in. Now, the further apart those two things are, the more you're going to need some preparation in order to get yourself into action ready for that. So typically it's like if what you need is going to be super hard on your body, either your nervous system, your metabolism, or you're just kind of behind the 8 ball. And if you're starting off and you're like, everything hurts, I'm so sore, I'm so tired, I'm so just, ugh, then you're way here, you're here. You're going to need to ramp up in order to get to meet yourself where you need to be. But if you're doing something typically in arm workouts, not that hard on the system, it's like here, it's not that demanding on the metabolism, on the metabolic process, not that demanding on the nervous system. You're working fairly small muscles. And let's say it was in the afternoon and you're like, well, I was helping a friend move and stuff. I'm already here. You're pretty much there. You don't really need anything to bridge that gap. Maybe just one light set, do some wrist rolls, make sure nothing's tight in there, some shoulder rolls. Okay, ready to go. So it's more about the need to warm up isn't universal. It's more about what's your current state versus the state you need to be in to perform where you want to be during that workout. If those two are pretty close, you don't need to warm up very much. But if they're very far apart, then you'd better have some preparation to bring yourself up to that. So that's what you want to think about with that workout. Probably for arm work, you don't need a whole lot of prep for it, I'm assuming, but I don't know. You could have woken up at 6 a.m. and you're like, oh man, my joints. Oh, that's not so good. All right, some little shadow boxing, get the blood flowing in the arms, maybe do some light rows and push-ups. Then you do a couple sets. Okay, now I'm ready. So it's based on those variables right there. But that's cool. Arm workouts, oh, so satisfying. So very much the way to go. I gave myself a good tricep workout today. So I feel you. All right, next question. Hey, Matt, does body weight strength correlate to weightlifting strength? If I am able to do like 12 planche push-ups, will my bench go up? That's a very good question. It usually does. In my experience, and just from what I've heard from other people talking and stuff, is that body weight training strength tends to correlate very well just to other exercises, other activities. Nothing I've ever done has correlated as well as body weight training to taekwondo, biking, skiing, being able to just pick things up in the gym and stuff. It's probably the most correlated type of strength to everything else. But strength is always specific. If you want to be good and strong in something specific, you got to train that thing. That doesn't mean you can't get stronger, but there's no such thing as I did this, now I'm optimally strong at everything. That just doesn't happen. That's like learning a language and being universally fluent in everything in the world. We always have a range that we go after. So it usually correlates much better to things that are much more similar. So for example, handstand push-ups and overhead presses, they're so similar to each other that they correlate extremely well. Right? So planche push-ups, bench press, very similar, but they are different enough that it is going to be a shock to the system either way. Like you could bench press 500 pounds and suck at planche push-ups. You can do planche push-ups and the first time you're under a bench, you're like, oh, geez, because your orientation to gravity is different. It's an open chain to closed chain. Your hand position is different. The more things that are different about how you're using your body between the two, the less functional carryover you're going to have. Funny story, there was a time when I was working with a guy at the gym who was the strongest power lifter in the gym. By far the strongest power lifter in the gym. And he's like, show me some of this body weight stuff you got going on here. And I was like, all right, well, we'll start with something. And I gave relatively easy for your posterior chain. I gave him table bridges. Couldn't do it to save his life. Like he just couldn't. He's like, what am I trying to do here? Like, I don't know how I'm trying to use my body. It just, I could not make it happen. Long story short, I know I'm getting long-winded here. Yes, it does correlate very well, but always remember, if something is important to you, that you be able to do something, you have to train that thing. But at the same time, if you just don't care, you don't have to train it. It's that simple. Like I don't care about a lot of things like planche push-ups. I honestly don't care. Now I don't care, but maybe it'll change. But you don't have to be good at everything. Go after the things that are a priority for you. Oh, this is a good one, Jacob. Hey, Matt, when should I train grip? If it's at the start of my workout, it hurts my other exercise. But if it's at the end, I get trained well enough, which also ultimately hurts other exercises. So you can do it either way. I mean, keep in mind your grip is getting strengthened with anything pulling. However, I would recommend do it as a finisher for your pull chain exercises. So you would do like your pull-ups, your rows and stuff, and then maybe have like farmer carries with like towels, or you can hang from towels from a pull-up bar, or you're like, okay, my arms are pretty shot and dead. Last couple sets of rows, do some towel rows or something like that. In that case, your pulling muscles are relatively weak, but your grip is relatively strong, and that's the way I would go about it. Keep in mind, too, a lot of people have relatively weak grip and they feel that's giving out, but if you strengthen that grip, it will cease to be that case, and it's going to be one of the strongest links in your pull chain. Movement is cool. Good screen name. Hey, Matt, dips have always caused discomfort in my collarbone area. Is this something you have heard of, and how might I fix it? Absolutely, yeah. First off, I would ask you, though, is you haven't broken your collarbone, right? Sometimes people break collarbones, especially with me in the mountain biking community. It just sets weird, or it heals a little weird, and so you've got just a misalignment there. But a lot of times that, again, is lack of back support. So your lats aren't on as much. You've got no tension in the back of your arms. You've got some rotation, some internal rotation going on. And you can just see right here, this kind of pinching this area, versus if I have some external rotation and I'm stretching that chest out, now I'm giving this area a little bit more room to move and stretch. Could be a bit of a tendon thing, or excuse me, a ligament thing, or that one of the ligaments just isn't used to working with that sort of position. So if you're hunched up like this all day, you're like, okay, dips, here we go. And now all of a sudden you're working your shoulders in a position it's not used to. You may want to warm up with some like really deep push-ups, or doing like dips with some foot assist, just so you can get down, stretch that area out, get some blood flow into those muscles. I would recommend just doing something of a little bit more of a warm-up. So like I was saying earlier, you may be jumping right into your dips, but that one area is not quite up to par. So doing some lighter pushing stuff with the shoulders back may be the way to alleviate that as well. Very good. Thank you very much for that question. Let's see, what other questions have I missed? I'll get a few more here to finish on, then I'm going to head on out for a bike ride before the storms come out here in Denver. Yikes. Let's see, I get questions like this. What do you think about Nike Training Club application, different apps? I don't know. I honestly don't have much experience with that sort of thing. Although I will say this, my personal opinion on a lot of stuff that's gotten appified these days is I'm not a fan, largely because working out and training is a creative endeavor. It's an alive endeavor. It's something that has personal expression and personal adjustment and flexibility. Like I said, train according to your circumstances. Apps, every time I look at apps and use apps and stuff, it just feels dead and robotic and artificial sort of thing. The only analogy I can keep coming up with is, imagine trying to have sex according to an app. Like, an alarm would go off and ding, begin foreplay, ding, remove pants kind of thing. Like, oh, no, shoot, we're behind kind of thing. It's not supposed to be this robotic, mechanical sort of thing. Working out is a human thing. It's alive, it's expressive, it's something that we're supposed to be flexible with and do according to our circumstances. And apps in general just make it dead and not very good. Now, of course, there could be different where it's like, well, it's giving you guidance, it's giving you structure and stuff. That's all good. That's wonderful. You don't need an app to get that, but I know some people, they just like that sort of thing. So in apps in general, that's my perception of, you keep it off the app. We got too many damn things we're using our smartphones for these days anyway. I mean, hell, I'm using it right now. And I think the more, it's almost like this knee-jerk reaction we have now of like, let's take this thing that doesn't need technology and somehow make that rely on technology. It's like, I don't know if that's really the best way we should be going about this, because being able to develop the skills and the proficiency to eat and train and do things best for you without having to have some sort of electronic overlord telling you how you're supposed to do things, I think that can only be good, to not necessarily depend on such things. But again, I'm going off with, I have no idea what it's about, to be perfectly honest with you. Let's see if I can get some earlier questions here. Let's see here. Thanks everybody for coming on in. Do appreciate it. There we go. All right. I knew I missed one here. Hey, Matt, are squats where I actively feel mind-muscle connection better. Squats where I am just going through the motion. Both are performed with proper form, but I can do 15 with good connection and 60 to 70 without. Yeah, that's very common. So usually when we're controlling more tension in our muscles and we're proactively engaging them, they're just going to take more energy because we're putting more tension into them. Whenever you're just kind of mindless, your body and your mind naturally goes with whatever the most efficient way to go is. How little tension can you get away with? What's the most efficient movement pattern? What's the most efficient range of motion? All those little things, they add up so you can do a lot more repetitions. So that's why I'm not a big fan of rep chasing, where you're like, how do I do more reps? How do I do more reps? You start making yourself efficient. And in the name of fitness, efficiency is going backwards. We don't want our training to be efficient. We want it to be inefficient. That gives us a greater chance at creating a stimulus that leads to adaptation and the changes we want. Now, it is different if you're in sport. If you're in sport where you need to perform at a certain level, for example, like a push-up competition or pass a PT test, that's totally different. You want to be efficient. You want to be able to crank those suckers out to meet the requirements of that objective. But fitness, totally different way to go. Very good that you observe that sort of thing. Andy L., how many workouts do you think are required to maintain muscle mass? I'm 53, not interested in bulking up, just maintaining for health. Everything, thank you very much for everything you post. Probably less than you realize. It doesn't take that much. Of course, there's a lot of other variables to consider, sleep and diet, of course, but also just physical activity. Like if you've got a fairly physical job, then you're already creating a lot of stimulus to maintain what you already have. It's not going to take a whole lot of working out. But if you're more sedentary, then yeah, it's going to take more because you're like an astronaut up on space. You're going to put more into it just to keep what you've got. So I would say minimum once a week, naturally, for all things. I would say start there. Once a week, few hard sets, and just keep that. Break it up as much as you like. One thing a day, for example. And if you notice that you're losing a little bit here and there, well, then bump it up to twice. But probably once to twice is probably all that you're really going to need. It's not as much as you think. Jen Bell, hey man, I can't seem to activate the serratus anterior. Been doing pseudo planche push-ups, cable push-ups, but not sure I'm hitting any isometrics that could help a lot. I'm not sure if you asked this earlier, but I answered this earlier on the comments on my YouTube channel. But yeah, serratus anterior, basically like shoulders forward, protraction of the scapula in a push-up position. So the way I would do this is get into a plank position, hands or elbows, probably easier on elbows, and you want to just protract the mother living hell out of those shoulders, like round your thoracic back as much as you possibly can. Arch, 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 arch as much as you can, because that's what that anterior is partially responsible for, is just making that happen. And then, if you can, have someone place some hands or some sort of resistance against your back so you're pushing even harder. That's a good way I would go about that. You might be able to take like a yoga strap or an iso loop around your hands, and that way you're pushing against that. That would be a good way to go about it as well. But that's how I would condition that serratus anterior through the isometrics. All right. Well, folks, let's end it on there. I'm going to get out before the storms hit and do some mountain biking. But thank you so much for coming on, asking your questions. As always, the audio for the first half of this is always available on your podcast directory of choice. And we'll be doing this again next week, roughly around 2:30 p.m. Here Mountain Standard Time. So come with your questions, and I'll talk to you next week. Thanks again very much. All links to Red Delta Project resources, including the books that I write, like Micro Workouts and Overcoming Isometrics, that help support the show, are down below in the description as well. Talk to you next week. Till then, be fit and live free.